We have the quorum. Election of chairman. Any nomination, please? I nominate Dr. Fernando Zhang, seconder. Mr. Zhang Kwok-chi, seconds. And objection? You'd like to accept the nomination, Mr. Zhang? Yes. Do we need a vice chairman? Any nomination? No? Okay then. All right, I vacate the seat to you, Dr. Zhang. I have to go back to my meeting. Yeah. Come up here, Mr. Zhang. You've been elected as chairman. Okay. 呢個嗰日俾咗大家嗰個 brief。好啊。睇下使唔使選副主席？各位同事需唔需要 ？Our members, do we need a vice chairman? One of the members would like to become the vice chairman. I confirm that he accepts the nomination. Any other nominations? Mr. Zhang Kwok-chi makes the nomination. Miss Claudia Mo seconds, and so did Mr. Kenneth Chen. So Mr. Ipper will become the vice chairman of the subcommittee. All right, let's have some discussions on the upcoming agenda and the subject of integrated education. But basically, we are talking about those students with special educational needs, or SEN, outside the mainstream students. I trust that members are aware that this is a highly complicated subject. There are 9 different categories of SEN students, and they do have divergent needs. I think on a preliminary basis that we should highlight all their problems. So my suggestion is that for these 9 categories of students, we may not necessarily need to discuss them one by one. Some are experiencing learning difficulties, autistic communication problems, and they all happen in one single student. So I think we can put together all these disabilities, hearing impaired, visual impairment, physically disabled, and intellectual impairment. I mean, I think we can either separate them or put them all together. So different categories of SEN students, we can discuss them on a joint basis, or we can discuss them on a separate basis. On certain important subjects in the context of integrated education, like IEP, or the mode of subsidy, and members are aware that there is a new mode of subsidy, $10,000, $20,000, and also on the question of teacher training, supervision, the right on the part of the parents to select schools. Now we have already a whole host of subjects on our plate, wondering whether there are any other views from members. Ms. Ho, beg your pardon, I was a little bit late. Congratulations on you being elected as chairman. If I may add 2 items, I'm not sure whether they have been covered. The first one is the school facilities. In the special education schools, some of them are so dilapidated that they don't even have good enough fire installations. So the Education Bureau should not be concerned just about 1 or 2 schools that we have been concerned about. There should be a comprehensive survey to find out whether the special schools can catch up with times. There are schools that are targeted at polio students. We don't have them these days. I think they should conduct a physical survey. This is urgently needed. The other thing is there should be a survey, an assessment at birth. There should be universal assessment. At a certain age, maybe at 2 or at 4 or at 6, they can conduct a comprehensive assessment of the students. I don't really want to see a situation where students at Form 1, Form 2 are assessed to be suffering from certain impairments intellectually. All right, we haven't covered the school facilities. If subject to members' agreement, we can incorporate this. This subcommittee is on the question of integrated education, and you're talking about the school facilities. Now, they have to do with the SEN students. If members feel strongly enough about it, I think we can incorporate it into the agenda items. All right, the timely assessment is terribly important. I go along with that. Ms. Cordiamo. Chairman, thank you. You mentioned the agenda items, the learning disabilities, autism, emotional problems. They can fall within the category. The other thing, the other category is visual, hearing impairments, or those suffering from spasm and so on. Will fall into a different category. I go along with that. If I may put a specific suggestion, I don't know where these will fall into, and they do have, the right on the part of the parents to choose schools. Now, for primary school students, they may have learning difficulties, and they do have the knowledge. They can express themselves, but they cannot express themselves in writing. It doesn't necessarily mean to say that they have lower IQ. But from primary into secondary school, the school authorities would set great store by their grades. Is there something that can be done to help them so that they don't have to be confined to special school, or they don't have to travel all the way from North Point to Twin Moon for education? Where would these fall under? Right to choose schools and the matching of students to the right schools, and this is an important area. I mentioned that a moment ago. The transparency of information, the right to select the schools, should it rest with the EDB, the parents of the schools, and this is something of concern to the parents. This can be considered. Mr. Chang Kwok-chi, Chairman, I agree with your categorization of these subjects, but I think we can decide on the priority. Very simply, now for someone who has been assessed to be suffering from learning impairment at primary school, what's going to happen to the student? Now, by the time they move on to the secondary school, they'll have to give the information again, or if they're not volunteering with the information, they will be stuck there. Now, I think the $10,000, $20,000 that you mentioned, it will go up only as far as Form 3, senior secondary students. They don't really have this kind of subsidy. I think we can pick up all these bits and pieces and ask the Education Bureau to give us an explanation. Because otherwise the parents will have to run around approaching different authorities. I also learned that integration at kindergarten and nurseries is not adequate. this has to do with the social welfare department. Perhaps this department can be brought in as well. Agreed. Interface between primary and secondary. There has been improvement in the dissemination of information, although there are still loose ends to be tied up. Subsidy, they are denying to Form 4 and Form 5 students. Mr. Chiu-hung, well, I heard from one of the parents that the subsidy would go as far as junior secondary, but not senior secondary. All right, kindergarten and nursery, the quantity is not enough. There is a long queue for the special kindergarten. Ms. Helena Wong, congratulations, Chairman. I feel that this study may represent only the first step. The integration education in Hong Kong, how is it done in Hong Kong? Is it done by subjects? Or is there any arrangement where those SEN students will be taken out of the mainstream and have education in a special way? And the distribution of SEN students in different schools, the stakeholders, what are the difficulties they encounter? What model is adopted by schools that can be taken as reference? Fourth, I think this subcommittee will have to make recommendations. I think it's only when we know about the situation well enough that we can achieve this. I would like to find out the best approach regarding special education. This information can be researched by the Secretariat, or we can get the information from the Education Bureau direct, or we can have some information from other jurisdictions. The other thing is, in these surveys, we have to ask whether the teachers just underwent general teaching training, or did they have any training in relation to special education? Was the training adequate? And this is something that has to be found out. Madam Wong, during the last term, we had a subcommittee on SEN, and the Secretariat did conduct some researches comparing the situation in Hong Kong and that elsewhere, the US, the UK, Taiwan, and so on. And this is the fundamental information, but it goes back a long time, about 6 to 7 years ago. So there is a need to update the information, and that has to be done. I think we can impose upon the Secretariat to update the information on the basis of the previous report.
Regarding teacher training, it was mentioned in the report, and I think we may as well update that part of the report on that. And the Bureau promised that at least 60% of the teachers should undergo 30 hours of relevant training. According to the Bureau, they've already reached that target, but it's only 10% of the teachers and 30 hours of training. That's rather superficial. Ms. Sitho, 30 hours is far too little. I think we have spent more than 30 hours on this subject already. For children with more severe disabilities or handicaps, they may first join a special school and then switch to mainstream education afterwards. But from what we've heard, when they do that, they are subject to unfair treatment. They might be able to cope academically, but they are asked to retain for 1 year. They are retained in grade for 1 year. And according to these special teachers, they're worried that if children leave special schools entirely, they have lost touch with the special education sector, and they may not have any support during their first few years in integrated schooling. So can we have an agenda item on this, the interface between special schools and integrated schools? Because according to special schools, they like to introduce something like education vouchers in Hong Kong, so that depending on the needs and the level of these children, they can find the right educational institution to help them to catch up. I know that for the Ebenezer School, for the visually impaired, they have this, but it hasn't been too cost effective. So can we have an item on interface and helping the students in integrated education to catch up? Yes, some students have switched to mainstream education, but they're subject to unfair treatment, bullying, discrimination, and a lot of frustrations. They are labeled as failures, and they suffer physically, psychologically, and mentally before they return to special schools. Of course, some of them are not really fit for training in special schools, and so they go to practical schools instead. They go to schools which were once called practical schools. There's Chiu-hung Secondary School, and also Methodist Secondary School in Fortress Hill. They adopt students. They were once practical schools, but now they're regarded as mainstream schools, and they have accepted many of these students. So is it that either you go to special schools or mainstream schools, and there is nothing in between? Should there be a revolving door or a transitional arrangement to allow students to choose between the two types of schools? According to special school teachers, they think that perhaps in the morning students should spend time in a mainstream school, and then in the afternoon in special school, and then adjust the proportion of time they spend in the two schools gradually. You cannot regard students as a Lego unit and just pluck them out from a special school and then stick it to a mainstream school. Yes, I agree that we should have an item on that. And for education voucher, we will cover this when we discuss the subvention model. Ms. Claudia Mo, thank you. We talked about academic interface for SEN student. I was just talking about primary and secondary schools, but perhaps I left out the part from secondary schools to universities. The number of such students moving on to university is almost zero. I think universities should exercise discretion to give them more chance. For instance, students suffering from cerebral palsy should be given special arrangement, and I hope that the agenda item I proposed would cover this item. And then just to report to the subcommittee, we had a case conference with parents of students with SEM, and their children suffered from bullying and discrimination in schools. I was very anxious, so I wrote to the government information officers as well as the Education Bureau. I hope that the government could produce more APIs. The last, in 2009, Radio Television Hong Kong produced a series of documentary on the learning situation of such children in schools that was far little. If the government has so much money to produce APIs on the development of Northeast NT and also the OH allowance, perhaps it's time the government produced APIs to encourage people to provide equal opportunities for children with SEN. Already, education path from secondary education to higher education. The new academic structure is 3-3-4, but for these students, 4. The last part, higher education, is not easy. And then community education and publicity, mentioned by Ms. Mo. I believe that this will be touched on in the course of our deliberations. We may not have a separate agenda item on community education, but I think this is a common issue. Any other comments on our work plan? Ms. Ho, students with SEN, have we included them into our agenda that is progressing, student of SEN progressing to higher education? I know some of them are very persistent. They were able to make their way to higher education and Ivy institutions, but some of them could not cope, and I think we should include it in our discussion to ask for subsidy for these students. Yes, their situation in higher education. Yes, some of them are persevered enough to make it to higher education, but because they no longer enjoy any allowance or subsidies, they cannot cope. I think they like to keep a distance from higher institutions because most of them, all of them, are autonomous. But I think on the whole there isn't enough support for these students in high institutions, so we should discuss this. So I have I think my original proposals plus suggestions from members are rather comprehensive. We may not be able to cover all the items in 12 months, although all subcommittees should try to complete their work within a year. But let's wait and see, and I will consult members whether we need to extend our term later. Ms. Helena Wong. Thank you for reminding us the situation in higher education institutions. The Bureau cannot wash its hands off claiming that these institutions are autonomous, because we have the DDO, and we should offer equal opportunities for such children in the education sector. So in addition to the Bureau, perhaps we should ask the EOC to see whether there have been any complaints related to discrimination on the ground of disability in the education field. Or perhaps we should ask the universities, what measures do they have? Let me declare I'm from the Polytechnic University. We do have guidelines. Students with visual impairment and other disabilities can enjoy certain special arrangements. Let's ask other universities if they have any guidelines for these things. Yes, EOC will certainly be among the bodies we're going to invite to tell us their basic principles. The EOC has just released a report. It has commissioned academics to carry out a study on integrated education, which is a rather important one, and also quite rare in Hong Kong. So as far as I know, the Commission has just done such a survey or a report. If members so wish, we can invite the Commission to give us a briefing. Ms. Ho. Well, EOC is a place where the rule of men prevails. It depends on who is the chairman. Luckily, the Commission enjoyed certain revival during Mr. W.K. Lam's days. Unfortunately, there will be a new chairman soon, and I'm just worried that the Commission may decline again. I don't know who. Ms. Cao will condone to be appointed to be the new chairman. You know, there is the tacit understanding that appointments will have to be vetted by Ms. Ko as first. So there will be a new chairman for the Commission, for the EOC, and we must communicate with him and tell him that he cannot do as he wishes, because we are very concerned about this area. As far as I know, Mr. Lam's term will end in January. So he's still here during January. We have to make a judgment here. Still, our next meeting will be in February. By then, Mr. Lam has just left office. Of course, we invite the new chairman. Do we have to invite his predecessor as well? Because after all, Mr. Lam is responsible for that report. I don't mind inviting Mr. Lam. Whether he comes or not, I'm quite confident that he is committed to promoting equal opportunities. I'm just not too certain about the new chairman. Well, we send out invitations to both. Let's invite both the incumbent chairman and the former chairman in February. Otherwise, if the new chairman is just C.Y. Leung fan, then it's useless. I don't think it is their practice for both the incumbent chairman and his predecessor to come. But anyway, they have someone in their commission especially involved in that study. So these colleagues should come as well. All right, what should be the agenda for our next item? Should we just focus on EOC's report? Ask the Commission to give us a presentation, and then we discuss with the administration the content of the report, or should we go directly into items directly relevant to needs of children, SEN children? We have to invite Mr. Lam Wing Kwong anyway, and it is his decision whether he comes or not, because he is responsible now, and he in fact has done a very good job. Last November there was a report published on SEN. I have read it myself. It's very comprehensive and thorough, and as far as I know, the Bureau has never responded to that report. We know, of course, the Secretary for Education has been kept busy since last summer when the row over national education started to brew. So our our bottom line is we should force the Bureau to show a stance to respond to that very important report by EOC on SEN. So is it necessary to invite the Secretary to come to our meeting as well? Of course, certainly. I think all meetings, with the exception of this one, should be held with the administration in attendance, because one of the main functions of LegCo is to monitor the executive and to engage the administration in a dialogue with us. So we should invite relevant government departments and bureaus to be here. When we discuss higher education, we should perhaps invite representatives from the UGC and the institutions to be present. Ms. Ho, Thank you for mentioning the Education Bureau, because there are people. We should look at the establishment in the Bureau responsible for special education, integrated education. Because there was some reorganization deemed to be negative on the part of the special education sector. So we should give them our feedback and tell them what to do.
Anything else regarding the next meeting? There will be one item on the agenda for the next meeting, the invitation of the Equal Opportunities Commission and the government for discussion on this study conducted by the EOC. Of course, for the EOC, we will invite the chairman, and we can also add that we're grateful to Mr. W.K. Lam. If he is prepared to join us, he will be more than welcome to do so. As to the representatives, I think we should leave it up to the EOC. Unless there is anything else, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.